Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true and open debate you've been looking for. The business of running a country is not always as clear-cut like any other business. There is almost an expectation of a budget deficit, and oftentimes there are so many other considerations leaders must consider, far ahead of whether it makes good business sense. But the reality is, citizens expect to have essential services, functioning infrastructure, and a generally good standard of living. These things cost money, though, and government revenue is derived primarily from taxation. But what happens when we simply do not want to pay our bills and taxes? Where does the money come from? Who is accountable? And when do we decide that it's not time to pay? Then what happens? Tonight on The Record, we discuss collecting the people's money. What happens to those who simply will not pay? I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break.
On the Record is brought to you by Alive.
Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true and open debate they've been looking for.
And the icon goes to On the Record.
On the Record was born out of a desire to do something different. What we do every day helps our country, it helps our society, it helps to shape the views and opinions.
Gentlemen, we've got to move very quickly. Let's wrap up. It's all On the Record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break. The Inland Revenue Department, which is responsible for VAT collection, is now actively going after those businesses which are withholding taxes owed to the government. There are millions in unpaid real property taxes, and the utility companies like water and sewage are vigorously pursuing customers with huge outstanding water bills. More recently, the National Insurance Board announced that it is pursuing those who are delinquent in paying their national insurance contributions. Now more than ever, the government says, we come to collect the thing you owe me. My guest tonight, Gaynell Rolle, Acting Head of Inland Revenue, and Elwood Donaldson, General Manager of the Water and Sewage Corporation. Welcome to On the Record.
Good afternoon.
Glad to have you here. We also extended an invitation to the National Insurance Board to send a representative, but they declined the invitation. We did the same for a representative from the Click to Clear initiative at Customs, but they were not available to come on. It would seem when you talk about collecting money, people would run to come on the show, but that's another discussion for another day. We're going to start, though, with you folks. Gaynell, I wanted to start out really to talk about, on an annual basis, what monies is your department responsible for collecting? Where does it come from? And how hard of a job is that?
Well, Jerome, good evening again. The Department of Inland Revenue is ultimately responsible for a number of government revenue sources. Business license, real property tax, the VAT stamp, and we also get a little funds from first home exemption, owner's exemption. So there are some of the revenue areas in which we're responsible for. It's not difficult in collecting it. What we do find is that there is some resistance as it relates to compliance. Right, and so we have beefed up our efforts to ensure that there is compliance in persons being able to remit those revenues.
When you say compliance, what does that mean?
Well, when we speak of compliance, there's a requirement for you to declare, in this instance for value-added tax, on a monthly, a biannually, or quarterly basis. And that's the sales that you would have made and the revenue VAT that you would have collected on behalf of government. And this is for businesses because, as you know, value-added tax is not a business tax but a consumer tax. So it is those tax that the business, when they would have charged VAT, would have got and now have to remit to the government. So you would think that most businesses would say, okay, I collected for the government, it's not mine, so let me now go and remit it to the government, even though I would have had it for a period of time to almost boost my cash flow. Now it's time for me to pay the government. So there is some resistance in that area with businesses, not in the collection, mind you, just the reporting and the payment. For the most part, though, I must be honest and say, for the most part, we find that businesses do make a declaration. Now, how fair and how just is that declaration is another area that we look at for persons that would have submitted the entire amount or purchases that they would have made that they would claim against the VAT that they would have paid. Because again, business value-added tax is not a business tax, it's a consumer tax.
Okay, so people are compliant, it's questionable if they are being completely accurate in what they declare.
So businesses are compliant. Businesses are compliant because businesses are responsible for collecting and remitting to the government.
Okay, well, I guess that's good in a way. At least they're compliant, but you know, sometimes we're a little tricky as a people. Mr. Donaldson, from the Water and Sewage Corporation, I mean, water is an essential part of our lives. You know, I always tell people, this is probably not the right time to say it. I could live without electricity, which I have been doing. But water is something that I don't know that I could live without because there are so many things that are connected that you really need water for. But yet there is an issue with collecting funds for people's water bills.
Good evening again, Jerome. Yeah, that is. So water is something that man has not lived without since inception. Electricity is a invention of the past 150 years. But part of the problem we've faced is that, one, the billing system that Water and Sewage has had is that the majority of consumers are billed quarterly, and except for businesses. And so sometimes when you get a bill every 3 months, persons tend to put it on the back burner, and then they look at it as a last resort, not realizing that that is your most essential utility that you have. Also, there's been the struggle in the past with the option of using wells. As far as other utilities, there's very little options as far as consistent supply. But we've had in the past where when the corporation had challenges, persons went to wells. Now that we have upgraded our services and are providing, pretty good standard here in New Providence and expanding Family Islands, we encourage persons to come out and pay your bill. In that, your water is one of the lowest utility rates that you pay. Rates have not increased since 1999, and so we encourage persons that you're taxpayers and it is a government corporation, and when you do not pay the bill, the government has to find the money, and usually I tell persons, if you don't pay your bill, you'll probably pay it in taxes someplace. So we're trying to make persons aware that it's important to pay the bill. It's an important necessity for your health and well-being, and we've started to start aggressive collection exercises in the past 6-7 months.
So a couple of things, if you could estimate about what are the arrears like? How much money is owed to the corporation?
About at the beginning of last year, we had about 45 million.
45 million?
Yes, was owed to the corporation, which is almost the equivalent of a year's revenue. We have basically about 44 million that we bill for water, and another 3 to 4 million for sewer. As a result, when our incoming board came in, it was found that we could not continue along those lines, and that we are subsidized by the government, but we need to be able to reduce that dependence and collect our debts. So we've been making vigorous efforts to collect that, clean up our AR, look through, see if there's accounts that have to be written off, accounts that to be collected. We are using lawyers to assist, also our own collections team. And we have encouraged persons to come in, because we've had arrangements where we work out payment arrangements for clients, where you can pay a percentage of your bill and make monthly payments and try to keep current, because we know water is essential, and it's for well-being and health.
And that, I really have to say, from a personal experience, I had a leak in my house, a really bad leak that I did not know. And when that quarterly bill came, I think I nearly passed out. But I came in and I said, listen, I think I have, obviously I know I have a leak, and they were able to get a plumber's report to show the leak, and then also work with me to give you
a rebate. Because what we do is we review your billings for the past year to see that, well, obviously that's not in line, and we offer leak rebates up to 50% of that high bill that you'd achieve. And that I find that commendable, because not many places refund you for usage on the other side of your meter.
BPL ain't giving you no money back, no rebate, but they are there to defend themselves. Gaynell, I want to ask you though, talk a little bit about the collection of that and really how that has evolved. As a business owner, you've got to pay your electricity bill, you've got to pay your water bill, you've got to pay staff, and all this extra money has come in. Is it hard getting businesses to come and pay what is owed?
Jerome, when you find persons would have filed, make a declaration. So you make a declaration, and once you would have made that declaration, you have a time period in which you are to remit the payment to the government. Most businesses, you find, once they would have made that declaration, if there is intent to pay within a day or two, the payment comes.
Okay.
It happens when persons would make that declaration, and then you see that the payments don't come in, and then we have a unit that pretty much goes after those companies, those businesses, and say, where's the government funds? How do we get the funds and get the payment in on that? And it's not only value-added tax. We have similar situations with business license and also real property tax.
Yeah, we'll talk about real property tax. I'm holding off on that, but I want to talk about VAT and business license.
Okay, and so what happens then is our compliance unit then would aggressively go behind those businesses and say, we need you now to come in and remit and make payments. Now, we really should not do a payment plan for outstanding value-added tax because it's a tax that you would have collected from the consumer. You collected that on behalf of the government, right? And you owe it to the government. But in some instances, we find businesses are really delinquent, and what we have to do is do a payment plan. So we would like to say to those businesses that know that, you made a declaration, you would have declared and say you owe the government, those outstanding companies, come in and we'll see how best we can make a payment plan, because we really need to get the funds into the government. 9 times out of 10, a lot of those businesses say, well, I don't have the money up front, I would have declared, but I don't have all to pay. So we encourage you to come in and sit and make a payment plan. So those persons that do not come to sit and make a payment plan, or simply just do not want to make good on the payment to the government, what we have done is that we have aggressively gone behind those businesses, asking the bank to go into their accounts and submit the funds to the government. So we have done that, yes, on a number of occasions. We find ways in which to garnish. And so that has
And you have the authority to do that?
Yes, we have the authority. It's within the VAT Act. So we do that. Wherever we cannot get the funds coming in. So we would first give you an option to come and pay. Make a payment plan and pay. Once we would have done that and sat with you and we realize that you have no intentions on making good of those payments plan, then we go to the financial institution and we say to the financial institution, they're a deemed agent. And we say to the financial institution, this is the amount that is owed by this business to the government, and the banks then go ahead and remit those amounts to us.
And you also have, I know from a business perspective, having had a small business, you also have to be you have to produce when you're going for your business license, correct? You have to be able to show that you are compliant. Is that correct? Is that how it works?
Business license as it relates to
Your annual
system.
business, yeah.
So annually you have to renew your business license, right? And we have assisted persons in being compliant with that. One of the biggest deterrent to persons being compliant is complexities, or simply just do not know how. So we have increased our taxpayer education, and we have reduced a lot of the complexities. So one would find that in renewing a business license, prior you would have to go to Water and Sewage, you would have to go to Ministry of Works, you would have to go to NIB, all of these different agencies. So once you are renewing, that is no longer required for you. You just make an annual declaration. Once you would have declared what your turnover is, you assess the tax and then you pay. You would find also that the government has granted businesses that are under $100,000, they are pretty much free.
Exempt,
they don't pay.
yes.
They are exempt from business license, paying a business license fee. Those, however, that are over that threshold would find that there's a small fee that they would just remit to the government, and there's no further complication. If you're over 100,000, then you would find that the businesses would then have an accounting certification letter that would just pretty much verify the turnover, and then they would be assessed the business fee. So the complexity in complying has been reduced significantly to encourage persons to be compliant.
Has that helped in the revenue collection?
It has helped tremendously in the revenue collection. It has also helped in turnover. It has helped from a 3-month process to where persons were able to get their business license within a 24 to 48-hour period. Okay. You know, so it has helped.
I have to ask this, as a consumer, I get my bill quarterly, and I'm happy to do that because I'm like, I don't have to deal with that every month. But then sometimes I find myself, because of that, I'm stretching out the payments. I say, well, I have to this quarterly, so I may not pay it, upfront as I would pay, let's say, my BPL bill or my telephone bill.
Yeah, we found out it's a difficulty because basically your water bill should be due 20 days after you receive it. But because of that, a lot of persons have taken that approach, and so we've become more stringent on our disconnections to have persons pay on a timely basis, because you do have 3 months, and when you break it down, it's probably one of your smaller bills unless you have water as a main product in a business or something along those lines. Because we tell persons that we need the cash flow to operate. You want to have good, healthy water. And so we encourage persons to pay timely. We have been investigating, though, looking at options of monthly billing, looking into that, and also prepaid metering too, which can also help with the reduction of AR, of your accounts receivable, in that persons will charge their meter for a certain amount of water usage. It also will contribute towards conservatism. Persons will, be aware of when the water is running. Because a lot of times, like you say, because persons are billed quarterly, they're not really checking to see if
3 months can be a long time. Yeah.
Yes. And you find where you run up a large bill and we're not aware. So we're looking at these options because definitely we want to reduce our accounts receivable. I think we have it down somewhere now between 35 to 40, and we want to really bring this down. So we're looking at options too, where once we have it under control, persons have better ways to control their water bill too.
Okay, well, folks, we're at the point of our first break in the show. We're going to take that quick break and stay with us. We're going to have more on the record right after this.
Matt, where in the world is Matt Lauer? Where in the world is Ellison Greenslade? And so these
But the value of cost in Atlanta. So we can talk about
More on the record tonight. The government's purchase of the Grand Lukine is a hot subject in the news. We're going to...
This portion of On the Record is brought to you by Generali Insurance Company Limited, your employee benefit specialist.
And welcome back to On the Record. This week we are looking at collecting the people's money. My guest, Gaynell, Rolle, acting head of Inland Revenue, and Elwood, Donaldson, General Manager of the Water and Sewage Corporation. The Ministry of Finance's acting Financial Secretary Marlon Johnson is on record saying that the government has no plans to write off its $480 million in real property tax arrears and will pursue all delinquents with vigor. He told the Tribune Business that barring any change in policy, it will continue to target every tax cheat through a combination of private sector collection agencies and soon-to-be created Revenue Enhancement Unit. Gaynell, how is the Revenue Enhancement Unit coming along?
It's coming along pretty good. We have just engaged 15 additional junior tax auditors.
Oh, wow.
And we have coming on stream some more senior tax auditors. So that's coming along pretty good, the government initiative in that regard.
And who they will be going after specifically? Real property tax folk, people who are delinquent in that, or just across the board people who are delinquent in other things as well, or just real property tax?
Everything that falls under the Department of Inland Revenue mandate. So you're looking at business license, value-added tax, the whole gamut. That department, Revenue Enhancement, is going to seek to enhance our
Will
revenue.
they look at specifically, as we talked about earlier, those folks who may be declaring but may not be accurately declaring?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. All of that is a focus. And so we're engaging that activity also, and as you mentioned, real property tax.
Real property tax collection seems to be a big problem. 480 million, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of funds outstanding. We have engaged, Jerome, as you know, we have aggressively now have persons on the ground, Tyler, along with the department, in going after updating our tax register, including those properties that are not on the tax register, and having a more accurate record of what is owing and what is outstanding. And a lot of that $480 million comes from us analyzing what we have on record. You would find from that record that some of the records are not accurate or updated. For example, you would find a property that we would have in our system that would be vacant land. When we go and actually visit the property, there's a $1.9 million home on the property.
So it could be
that's
higher.
just an estimate of what could be outstanding. And vice versa, mind you, we can find that there was a home once on that property, and due to some natural disaster or something that, you know, it has been dilapidated, or actually the structure no longer exists. So a lot of that is being reviewed. So it's important that we have the Revenue Enhancement Agency that will assist us in this regard. I want to put a plug in for our initiative that is currently ongoing. You would see that we have, throughout the New Providence, taxpayers, assessors, I would say, that are on the ground actually doing a review of properties. Going in there, you see persons, you're pulling tape and doing measuring and asking questions on the structure, how many AC you have in the house, and that kind of information. It is necessary to update our tax register. Persons are saying that, oh, the government just plan on trying to find a way to tax persons and increase taxes. But what we fail to realize is that information assists us in assisting the government in making decisions on where do we offer sanctions, where do we give concessions, you know, once we have that information. How many homes are owner-occupied homes that are $250,000 and under? Because, you know, those homes are exempt, because you're $250,000 and under, you come and you make an application, a declaration that, you know, my home is valued $250,000, and then we go ahead and we give you the exemption for the tax base. So there's a lot of information that we get from the assessors that are out there. They're not only out there to say increase the value of what you're being taxed, it's also aiding us in decision making. We also have the over-the-hill exemption, those homes in that area that the government have given exemption for real property tax and in that area. So there's a lot of information that we get when we update our tax register. It's not just a focus that, oh, we're coming to get you, we're coming to tax you.
What if you owed previously and it's determined, let's say I ran up for whatever reason, I wasn't paying my real property tax for several years, and now I've run up this bill, but it's been determined, or I determined that I'm now exempt, or my home is less than $250,000. Do I still owe that money, or is that now written off?
You begin not to owe the money when you make a declaration and you said, I want to now apply for the exemption, right? some persons would say, well, I never knew. We try to educate the public as much as
You know,
possible.
we know what we want to know sometimes.
Yes,
I'm just going to say that.
yes.
But anyway, let's go on. Yeah.
Right. But we have a number of initiatives that assist the taxpayer,
Sure.
especially as it relates to real property tax, right? One of those initiatives that we have is persons who have been delinquent in paying your real property tax. We encourage you to come on in and make a payment plan. Right? Make a payment plan with us and get current, right? We also have in place persons saying, well, you know what, I could not pay because of undue financial hardship. Sure. We have something in place where we would assist you in that state. We would look at maybe removing some of the late charges and the penalty surcharges. So we have a number of initiatives that will encourage you to want to be compliant.
I have to ask though, why is it that we don't pay property tax? Why do we feel like we don't have to pay real property tax?
Persons feel it's not a necessity. But you know what, I beg to differ? I beg to differ and say to them, when we look at the demands that we place on the government,
hence we are sitting in the seat today.
Exactly what it is that we want. Where do we think the government is going to get the money from to be able to meet these demands? We as civil servants, we're sitting down now saying, listen, we need a pay increase. Where's the funding coming from? If persons refuse to pay their fair share, if government do not collect the necessary revenue, where are we going to get it from? Do we continue to borrow? And when we borrow, then what happens? We're going to come back to introduce a tax to pay the borrowing. So if persons pay their fair share, the government will be able to better manage its expenditures and meet the demands of the citizens. So we encourage persons to pay their fair share. I remember a gentleman came to me and he said, well, you know what, I saw in the new legislation that I could just come and you would waive the surcharge and the penalties and I could make a payment plan and then decide to pay you. So I said to him, so stop and think for a minute though. When we sit and we do a budget, we budget based on what the government expects to receive. We expect to receive the revenue from real property tax. So when you do not pay it, those expenditure that we have don't go away. We still have to meet those expenditure. So where do we get the revenue? We now have to go and borrow. When we borrow, we have to pay the interest on that along with the principal. So when we forgive your penalties, your surcharges, where do you think the government will, how are we left then to manage our affairs? So when you come and sit and say, oh, I just want you to forgive me or I want you to waive the payment, remember now, the government sit down and we presented you a budget. When we presented that budget includes the obligation that you, the taxpayer, has to the government. And we need you to meet that obligation for us to be able to stay in line with the budget.
You know, I have so many thoughts on that, but Donaldson, I want to get you in on this now. When we look at, from the water and sewage perspective, when you're looking at some 40 million in outstanding bills, outstanding payments in arrears, how does that now impact your ability to do business? You provide an essential service.
Well, that was the concern of our executive chairman, Honorable Adrian Gibson, when he came in as chairman, to realize that with this amount of money outstanding and the work to be done, especially in the Family Islands, and capital improvements here in New Providence to keep up with development and sewer work, that there's no way that we could continue to operate with that amount of money outstanding, and that salaries are going up. We have two unions that have agreements that expired who are also looking for enhancement in benefits. You know, the cost of running the corporation as far as electricity and those other things have gone up too. And so it creates a big challenge, cash flow. Water infrastructure is very expensive in that it's something when we do it, you see we have to go into the road, we have to excavate, do the work, then pave the road back. We've been trying to do that in conjunction with Ministry of Works to save some monies, but it's very costly. And so there's no way that we can continue to operate with that type of receivable. And as Ms. Rowe was saying, that the government has to find the monies to keep water and sewage going. Either it's from collections or they will tax you more to subsidize. Basically, we've been averaging $25 to $30 million a year in subsidies from government. Some of it is to compensate for the Family Islands where our rates are lower than those in New Providence, but still, you cannot have almost a year's worth of revenue out there outstanding and expect for you to operate efficiently.
And then water is it is such a delicate commodity, because you talk about replacing the infrastructure. And we remember. I can tell you from my own experience. For years, we were on a well system because we just didn't trust the public, water supply. But in recent years, I've seen that improve.
Yes, yeah. We had a loan from the IDB. We got some years ago. It's just wrapped up this year, where we went through and dealt with a non-revenue water issue. That's water that goes into the system that we don't get any revenue for, which consists of leakage and sometimes illegal connections. We've dealt with that, so we've been able to have the adequate supply here in New Providence. There's still some pockets where you may have some rusty waters, which we are looking to deal with, where there's some old aging infrastructure, but this costs money. So we always tell persons that in order to keep this service and keep it the way that we have it, you have to pay your bill. And I think as a payments as a culture, we tend to be lax when it comes to paying bills.
We don't like to pay bills. Let's be honest. We do not like to pay bills.
Yeah.
That is a cultural thing that we have. But yet we want
the convenience of what
and the great
for.
service, and,
Yes.
and you want good. And water is essential to us.
Yes.
I mean, and that I don't think sometimes we even realize. And I use the word delicate. How delicate that is, because something happened to our drinking water.
Yes,
You know,
that's a problem. I mean, persons need to keep sanitary. You don't want it to be where persons are living in conditions where they cannot bathe, they cannot keep their premises clean, and that can lead to other issues. So water is crucial, and as we say, our board has been very aggressive in collecting these monies and trying to have it where persons realize how beneficial it is to pay. And it's not a big bill to pay. I always smile. Most persons, when they see me, always say that that's their smallest bill. Yet some persons are reluctant to pay it. So we're doing public campaigns to encourage persons to pay their water bills and also to come off the wells. That will also assist BPL. That's less power generation for those. And we, especially here in New Providence.
You all still provide the pumps, the public pumps, correct?
Yes, we do.
Which is free.
Yeah, the standpipes are still there, and persons still can use it. And that's usually a benefit in a lot of the communities over the hill. And also, right now, though, the Prime Minister's office has an initiative that we're involved with in trying to bring potable water to the homes in the over the hill area. And so that's something we're looking forward to in the future. But we're looking in that light probably more towards prepaid metering, where we don't have persons who have limited means running up high water bills, and then we run into the problem with receivables again.
There was a lot of discussion about this do not disconnect list. Is that list still in existence?
No, that was eliminated.
Let me know if it comes back so I can get on it. Just kidding. Go ahead.
Trust me that the chairman and the board have decided that is no longer in existence. And if you don't pay your bill, we will cut you off.
As it should be. But do you give, and I have to ask, do you give consideration to places like the hospitals and that who provide those essential services as well?
Well, government, we do not disconnect government agencies, but government has made a better effort in paying its bill.
That's good to know.
The Ministry of Finance has been keeping up, and I'd be grateful to let you know that government has been paying its bill.
Good to know. Gaynell, does there any list like that exist?
Oh, no.
Not do not
There's
disconnect.
no preferential treatment.
No preferential treatment. Everybody has to pay.
Everybody has to pay. We have also beefed up our compliance efforts throughout the Family Islands.
Right.
So we have a number of our officers that are traversing the Family Islands, ensuring that compliance is also throughout our Family Islands.
Well, folks, thank you much. It's that time again. If you are enjoying our discussion, stay tuned. Our show continues right after this break. Hello and welcome to On the Record, and the balanced, true, and open debate you've been looking for. Welcome back to this edition of On the Record. At the beginning of the year, the Minister of Finance announced that a lot of work is underway to reform the business license process. At the time, they were exploring a full range of intermediate and more radical ideas, all in the interest of improving the ease of doing business. Starting in 2020, business license fees will be calculated differently. Instead of annual gross turnover, there will be a value-based calculation using the revenue that is subject to value-added tax. In December, the government amended the legislation which made Bahamians with businesses generating revenue of $100,000 or less exempt from business license fees, among other provisions under the Act. This week, we are looking at collecting the people's money with my guest, Gaynell, Rolle, Acting Head of Inland Revenue, and Elwood, Donaldson, General Manager of the Water and Sewage Corporation. Gaynell, we talked a little bit about this in an earlier segment. What government is doing to make it a bit easier for business owners to be able to pay, particularly those under the $100,000 income bracket. How is that going to impact, or how is that impacting overall revenue collection? Because there are a lot of small businesses out there that don't hit that $100,000 ceiling. How is that going to impact the overall revenue collection?
Okay, so Jerome, we have a number of businesses that really do not make, we call them the mom and pop stores, right, that do not make over $100,000. And the government, in its wisdom, kind of figured that we need these businesses to survive in the economy that seems to be a little stressed right now. So to offer some sort of assistance to those businesses, they said, well, we'll give you your business license. It's going to be exempt if you're a mom and pop store, meaning that you're making under $100,000 or less. We also further went, because there was an administrative cost, they kind of figured to say, go around and get all of the necessary we call them requirements, basic requirements. When you look at NIB, like I mentioned before, Ministry of Works, the police, environmental health. So we said to those businesses, the DIR is a revenue collection agency. So once you would have submitted those documents to us, there's no further formality for you for the renewing of your business.
So one-time submission.
One-time submission. However, you must remain compliant with those agencies, because if you're in default or breach any of those agencies' requirement, they will advise us that you are in default and your license can be revoked or suspended based on the severity of the breach. And so we would have moved to assist small mom and pop stores, but we also, with our sister agencies that would help us, we said to them, just advise us if persons are in breach, because there must be a trigger point, there must be a deterrent that encourages persons to stay compliant. So that was the effort.
What if I am a business owner and my revenue is over $100,000 and I'm not paying my VAT, or haven't paid my VAT, but I'm trying to renew my license?
Oh, so you have to become current. You have to become current.
So that's where you're caught.
We have an integrated system that you are caught, and like you know now, we are integrating all revenue collection, even through customs. So even when you make a declaration to us and you said, listen, this is my turnover, this is what I made, and these are the imports that I would have brought that will help to reduce what I have to pay the government, we now have an integrated system where we work with customs to find out and verify exactly how accurate is the information that you are submitting to us. And so a lot of time persons sit down and say, well, how did they know? How did they know that this is not so? And our persons get on you, and I'm telling you rather quickly. Rather quickly they get on you. And then once you do that, Jerome, you find that you are charged. You have penalties that can range up to $50,000 for false declaration. You know, so it goes to just truthfully report and see how best we can work with you.
And I guess all of these things, though, at the end of the day, cost money, because there is a cost attached to having people in place to do this work and to do all of that. But it is necessary.
It is necessary. It is necessary. We have also engaged a number of stakeholders to assist us in persons being compliant. We have engaged, for example, you saw persons would come and they would say, I need a tax compliance certificate. to be able to get any form of payment from the government. So it isn't that in before, like where you could have owed the government and then come and get paid from the government. You know, so the Department of Inland Revenue is responsible for that policing. So when you make an application to get paid from the government, they ask you to produce a tax compliance certificate. And what does that do? We check with all government agencies to see if you do not owe the government, even up to road traffic. Even if your driver's license is not being renewed.
Really?
Yes, we check
Is
with
that
all of those.
intricate now?
Yes, we
Wow.
check with all of those agencies to ensure that you are remitting to the government what is due to the government before the government remits to you what is due to you. And so we also engage other external stakeholders. For example, we encourage persons with real property tax. You can go and you can create an escrow account with your banks. With that escrow account, you would say to the bank, listen, I have real property tax of $1,200 a year. Each month, I want you to put in an escrow and deduct from my deduction. Each month, you would deduct $120, right? And you put that into my account, and that is going to assist with the bank then makes the payment on your behalf to the government. Bear in mind now that most of the properties in the Bahamas are mortgaged. So essentially, they're really owned by the bank.
Right.
So the bank really is responsible for paying that mortgage.
And I understand you all are
You
now
know?
reaching out to the banks
Yes, we
to
are.
say,
Yes,
this
we
person
are.
owes me.
Yeah, exactly. And so even beyond that, we're saying to the bank, before it gets to where the person owes, because now there's late charges, we're saying to the bank, can we work out something where you would now collect that money up front, and at the end of October, remit the same to the government for those property tax that are outstanding. So imagine the long way that would go in helping to reduce the high amount of accounts receivable we have for real property
It's kind of
tax.
like what the bank's doing with your insurance.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah, whether it's your
Exactly.
car or home or whatever,
Exactly.
probably they ensure that the insurance is paid up
Exactly.
because they still have an interest.
Exactly.
But I saw you shaking your head
No,
over
it's
here.
fine, because at water and sewage, we don't engage you in business unless you have tax compliance.
That's right.
And so we have sometimes vendors asking for payment, but if they don't provide their tax compliance certificate, we hold the check until it is brought up to date. So the government has done that all around. And so-
Why is that? I mean, why is that so important that we had to get to this point? I mean, you know, I kind of know what the answer is, but why is that so important, and how is that tightening up business, I guess, across the country?
Well, obviously, persons need their cash flow, and like she said, the government needs theirs, and the government only can operate through the taxes it collects. So you are now collecting, especially when it comes to VAT, money on behalf of the government, but yet you're not turning it in, but then you want the government to pay you for things you have done. So that is would be not a fair exchange on the government's behalf. So definitely, we at Water and Sewage follow that, and I think the other government utilities do too, in that if you're not compliant, we don't release funds to you.
Even with the banks, Jerome, you find that annually the banks would ask you to produce your annual business license for businesses. So they even assist
If
us.
you, particularly if you're holding accounts with the bank.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So they would ask you to produce those business license to continue operations. So we have a number of external stakeholders that are holding hand with the government to ensure of collections. The government receive its revenue.
Interesting. And I guess from a business perspective too, and I have to ask, do you find that maybe with all of this, some people may be deterred from getting into business, saying, you know, I have to do all of these things. I just want to open a business. I just want to run a business.
It's the nature of doing business. I don't feel...
Do you think we understand that?
Yes,
No?
I think it's the nature of doing business. And what we try to do is to remove some of the complexities of that for you. You know, we would have made the process online. So pretty much you can sit online and you can actually apply for your business license. You can pay online for real property tax. You can pay online for value-added tax. Any services that we offer within the Department of Inland Revenue, you can pay online for those services. You know, so we try to make it less strenuous for you, and administratively we try to help you reduce the costs.
Okay. Folks, sorry, you were going to go.
No, I'm saying too, at Water and Sewage, we've made it easy for you also, where we opened a new office in the mall. You can pay online. You can pay at any banking institution, cash and go, send cash. All these options are available to persons, to make it easier to pay your bill. You don't have to come in and stand online.
Has
if you
that
want
helped
to.
in any way? I mean,
Well, on the Family Islands, definitely too. We've used that because, you know, a lot of Family Islands, the banking institutions have left.
Right.
So we've used Cash and Go and Send Cash on the Family Islands, and you can pay online. We've set it up where you can go to our website and pay online. Persons get their bill by cellular phone. And
I get
so
mine by email and I pay online. Which
Right,
gives you-
yes,
yeah.
which makes it easier. So we're trying to make it easier for persons to pay this money that is owed. That, you know, sometimes persons don't have the time to come in, and I think the only persons who really like to do that are the elderly. They like to
Mamas need to see that bill.
Yeah.
They need that receipt.
Yeah, they need to see that.
Gaynell, I saw you saying yes to that. You know, giving people payment options. Is it? I mean, is that something
That's
you
right,
all
that's
do as well?
what we do. So most persons would have your cell phone. Persons say, "Oh, I don't have a computer. I don't know how to use a computer." Our app is mobile friendly.
And you have an app.
You have an app. It's mobile friendly. You can go online and you can make all of your payments. You spoke earlier also about the government moving for business licenses as it relates to your value-added tax.
Yes.
So we're looking at more innovative ways in which we assist and streamline the process, and all in our addressing the ease of doing business. So we're moving towards where when you would have completed filing your annual or quarterly or monthly value-added tax, we would have had your total turnover for the year, your total turnover for the year. So we're looking at where we get to a point where once we have that, we then send you what your bill is. You no longer have to make a declaration, and then you go and you pay the government.
So you all are now going to be calculating
Exactly.
on my behalf.
Exactly.
Good to know. Good to know. Make sure you calculate right now.
Yeah, well, make sure you submit right
You
now.
submit right. All right.
Declaration is key.
There is the beginning. Yes, you have to declare properly.
Right.
You are watching On the Record. Our final segment is right after this break. Welcome to On the Record.
Looking for more On the Record? If you miss our Thursday showing at 8 p.m., join us for the re-airing on Friday mornings at 10, and then again each Sunday night at 8:30. Or go to our YouTube channel and catch up on all of our past episodes. And then like our Facebook and Instagram pages for a preview of upcoming shows and get a chance to ask your questions. Just look for On the Record.
Welcome back to our final segment On the Record tonight. We are looking at collecting the people's money. My guest, Gaynell, Rolle, acting head of Inland Revenue, and Elwood, Donaldson, general manager of the Water and Sewage Corporation. When we take it upon ourselves not to pay our bills, whether it's our property tax, whether it's our value-added tax, whether it's our water bill, how does this now affect the bottom line of country? I'm not just talking about, you know, within our individual areas, but, you know, from a financial perspective, how do we affect the forward movement of our country when we decide as a people that we aren't going to pay? Mind you, we can still find money for vacations. We go to Miami to shop. We can do all these things to our house for Christmas, and we can find money to do all kinds of things. When it comes to paying bills, that's when I broke, I ain't got no money, the tax is too high, I don't make enough money.
It stifles the growth of a country because it puts the government almost at a place where it's in limbo, because you would have the budget where you would have anticipation, but even with that budget you find that you would have things that come up. For example, we did not think that we were going to budget for the extra things that we now need for BPL.
Oh yeah.
Natural disasters that happen.
Heaven
So
forbid
when
we have a hurricane.
exactly. So when we have these shortfalls and we're trying to meet the shortfalls, when the unexpected come, we're already operating at a deficit. So we are further in the hole. So it really stifles the country and the demands that the citizens find that they put on the government in moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with the same. You smile, you look at the issues. You say the government needs money for BPL, and it still needs money for water and sewage. There's other things.
Don't forget you all.
We still need monies, and persons taxpayers want these services, but if you do not pay your bills, especially the taxes and those the government organizations, the government struggles. You see, we had the doctors protesting, they need money. That's crucial to the health care in the country. But the government can only find monies that it collects. So we at the corporation, like you said, try to make it easier for persons to pay. We're trying to collect the receivables so the government does not have to find as much money outside of capital development for us.
And we think it's only $50, or it's only $100. Or...
Yeah, but when you add it up to all the persons, when you have the thousands of persons not paying that, it comes to a sizable amount. And it accumulates over the years. And when you look at it, the government is faced with the option of borrowing money. And as you said, when the government borrows money, there's interest on that money. And the government only gets monies from taxes. And so we would encourage that because, too, water is essential to development. And if the corporation, the Water and Sewage Corporation does well, and we expand in Family Islands, then you can encourage foreign investors to come in, and that because it is essential, it's one of those utilities that if someone is coming to a new area, would want to ensure that is available.
And I know Chairman will be happy that I brought this up, but I do see that you all are really expanding your services and doing quite a bit around the country.
Yes, it is. And him coming from Long Island and being a Family Island person, one of his main concerns was the Family Islands. And if anyone knows, expansion to the Family Islands is costly.
Oh, yeah.
In that mobilization to get equipment there, shipping, all those things cost money. And so it's a pretty penny that the government has to come up with. You know, we're doing development in Crooked Island, about to start in Cat Island, doing work in San Salvador, South Andres, Long Island, in Eleuthera. So there's a lot of work going on, and it costs money.
And these are areas, too, where there's a small concentration of population.
Yes.
But they deserve the same quality of service that we get.
We get. And so that is why it's important that we all pay our taxes, because a lot of persons have family in the Family Islands, and a lot of persons, when they travel to the Family Islands, will complain, well, there was no water, there was this and that. So we want these things to do, so when you here from New Providence go to vacation or visit your family in the Family Islands, you enjoy the amenities.
Some of us may want to retire on the Family Islands.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
We want that same quality
of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Gaynell, from very quickly, this is a question that would have come up. How far back do you go in charging real property tax? If you were exempt, let's say you were under the $250,000, but you did some renovation to your home, or you
the
did
law
some...
permits us up to 5 years. The law permits us up to 5 years, so we can go back up to 5 years. You know, it's amazing that you would ask that questions, because persons coming in looking for exemption would say, well, you know, I own this home from such and such a time, and you know, I've always reside in it, so you give the owner-occupied exemption, so I should be exempt entirely. Vice versa, you find persons who had not paid their taxes. Oh, I didn't know, so you should still exempt me, but you didn't know, and you want the benefits from the government, so we should be able to have the government have that benefits when you don't pay. But no, the law allows up to 5 years, so we can go back up to 5 years.
Very quickly, as we move to wrap up now, what kind of things can we expect going forward? I mean, in terms of seeing more aggressive measures in tax collecting, and also in making it easier for people to pay, because a lot of times, I have to admit, and I'm guilty of this, I go to pay something and the line is long, I'm like, I coming back, you know, and I guess, you know, the same thing can be said in even doing business. You know, if it's complicated, it's a deterrent.
Right,
You know.
that's for sure. So for us, Jerome, that is key. Our focus is really going at the root of the problem rather than addressing it when it would have festered. So for us, the root of the problem is, why don't persons comply? And we found that, one, that persons really just did not know. Did not know how to, the where, the what's, the how, the why. So we have sought to address that through our taxpayer education. We have completed two We call them DIR, beyond the boundaries, beyond the walls. We have gone into the community. We have 2 more that we are completing now. And we have gone to persons and say, come to us, no matter what it is. Just come to us and say, I did not know. How do I do? I never registered my property before. I now need to register. I have a business and I never got a business license. I'm operating. How do I now do that? So we have said to persons, come forward. Come now. Now is the time of repentance.
I like that. Now is the time of repentance.
Come, and we're going to assist as best as we can. So we have 2 more areas within New Providence to do, and like I said to you, we're doing the entire Family Islands. So once we would have done our tax education, and it's continuous, but for now we're going to get it out there as best as we can and go out and meet the people and say to them, you don't have to be afraid to come to us. We're going to come to you, and we're going to hear what your concerns are and how best we address those. So we want to ensure that persons are able to comply from the get-go. We don't want it to go and escalate and then we seek to address it.
Yeah.
So for us, that's how we're going to move forward. Removing the complexity, we have seek to modernize our system as best as we can. Everybody just about has a cell phone. So we want to make that process so easy by using your mobile app that maybe you only have to do a 1-2 click and you're able to comply with what it is our requirements are.
Fantastic, great news. Bottom line is, and this I think for both of you, one of the things that you've stressed is, if you owe, come in, talk to us. Let's see what we can do to sort it out. But I want to thank you for coming, because this has been very informative. It always bothers me that we do not see the importance of paying taxes. And as I say to people all the time, you know, we always look north. We always look at the United States. We always look at Canada, at how they live and the quality of living. And I say, well, you know, those countries pay lots of taxes. They pay to live the way that they do. You know, but we seem to think that, you know, our hope is off in the great beyond, and it's just going to happen somewhere. So thank you for coming to share with us today, and hopefully some folks out there will take heed and certainly begin to pay what is owed and keep the government in business. That's an important thing, and we will all benefit from that. So thank you again for coming.
It was a pleasure, Jerome. I just want to say in closing that persons wanting more information on value-added tax, business license, first home exemption, VAT stamp, can go to our site, inlandrevenue.finance.gov.bs. We have frequently asked question area that they can go in and they can find any amount of information that they need relating to any of those areas.
Fantastic.
And persons, as for water and sewage, can go to WSC.com on our website and also our Facebook page to find any information you want on your water bill, billings. We also have a mobile app that you can use. And we welcome you to come into either our mall office or Thompson Boulevard if you need assistance. And I want to also give a shout out to our hardworking staff, my colleagues and our board of directors for all the support. And also the Bahamian public, our consumers.
Thank you to your staff too. I nagged them for quite a few days. I was just calling anyone who would answer, said, listen, I need to reach, I need to get someone on the show. So thank you for accommodating. Thank you. I just wish the folks at NIB had come on today, because I think it would have been a great opportunity for them, but that's another show. Thank you very much for coming. We hope that you have enjoyed our show tonight. Special thanks to my guests, Gaynell, Rolle and Elwood Donaldson. Also, on behalf of my technical staff, thank you very much to all the folks who work behind the scenes to keep us on the air. Once again, I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.